Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we are talking about the new boogeyman of the format, the One Ring. The Lord of the Rings card has taken over the Commander format. We are going to figure out if we should ban it in our playgroup. Right, so this is not really a general discussion about the greater Commander community, but it should be, somewhat applicable. But for us playing on Commander Clash, should we ban the One Ring? There was maybe some premature discourse on the internet. Saffron Olive got a little excited and said that we're banning the One Ring. And that came from like an offhand comment.
Immediately.
We were like, yeah, we should probably ban the One Ring. And then Seth was like, yes, I have news to share.
I misunderstood.
And then it kind of blew up. There was a Reddit post, like people writing articles on it. So we're going to actually have the proper discourse today. And then we'll come out with the conclusion. And maybe it is the same conclusion, or maybe we have to do a reversal. But we will see. But joining me in today's discussion is none other than the man who perpetrated it all, Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I think everyone knows where I stand already, but I'm excited for this conversation.
All right. Tomer, you also got in on the action. Budget Commander, how are you doing?
Yeah, I was getting DMs being like, oh, so you're banning the One Ring. Like, why don't you ban all these other things? I'm like, we're banning the One Ring? Are we? And then I got linked this thing, and I'm like, well, now I'm getting DM'd about it. So just to clarify, I retweeted and be like, no, we didn't ban it yet.
And then
Seth.
Krim, the Asian Avenger, how are you doing?
Morning. Good morning. I cannot wait to get into this discourse, I guess.
As the Lord of the Rings expert on the panel, we need your flavor thoughts on whether this card should remain.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'm your host, Richard. I will be moderating this discussion. We're just going to have a roundtable discussion. And then we're going to get to the conclusion afterwards. Before we get into it, though, today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. Their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you'll pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. You can get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MDGGoldfish. So thank you, Card Conduit. So if after today's podcast you decide you don't need your One Ring anymore, you can send it over to Card Conduit. All right, let's get into it. Before we get into it, in case you don't know what the One Ring actually is, I'll read to you the Oracle text. It's a 4-mana legendary artifact. It's indestructible. When it enters a battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each bird encounter on the One Ring. You can tap it, put a bird encounter on it, draw a card for each bird encounter on the One Ring. So, before we start our discussion, let's go around the table and figure out where we stand right now. Before our discussion, if you want to ban the One Ring on Commander Clash, keep it, or neutral. Not enough information. You're going to decide as we, get along the podcast. So, Seth, it's pretty clear where you stand.
Super easy. It was fun for 2 months, but it should be out of here. The card is, easily banned, in my opinion.
Tomer?
I'm on the neutral side, but I do lean. I'm on neutral, but I do think it's probably going to be yeeted out of our group soon enough.
Crib?
I don't see the problem in it. We've all in the times that we've seen it, it's fine. It feels no different than any other busted thing in Commander.
All right, and I too am neutral. I could see it staying. I could see it going. The compromise would be keep it for this season and then ban it afterwards. That's the other thing that we could be doing. So we have 1 for, 1 against, 2 neutrals. So we are starting off on an even playing ground here.
I think also context is really important here because this is only for our house ban list, and our house bans serve a very specific thing, like a specific goal that is not applicable to just general play groups. So our house ban list is pretty short, but the focus of it, the intent of it, is to make for better entertainment games for our viewers. So we do not have the same goal as like the rules committee or whatever. We have your standard tabletop thing. We're trying to make entertaining shows, and we want to ban cards that will lower the entertainment value or make the risk of having worse games. So that's the intent here. And our current banning list, just so everybody is on the same page, and then we'll see if maybe the One Ring fits in that criteria. We banned the fast mana cards, Sol Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Jeweled Lotus, Dockside Extortionist, Gaia's Cradle, and then we also banned Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study. And the reason why we banned these is because we found, since we've played with all these cards before in previous seasons, we found that they just lead to less interesting games. Like, if somebody has a turn 1 Sol Ring and they pop off, either we shut them down and they don't get to do anything for the rest of the game, and that's not really entertaining, or they pop off and they snowball and they win, and that's not an interesting game either. So these cards are like net negative in terms of entertainment value. So that's where we're coming from. And then now we have to think, does the One Ring fit in that context of that goal?
I will say, though, I think Commander in general is actually better with the Fast Mana Rocks banned. I think Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study are those are the cards that are mostly banned because I won't pay for them, and it derails our conversations into huge arguments about why I will never pay the 1 or pay the 2. But the Fast Mana, I actually think I have always encouraged playgroups to try it out. If you got your own playgroup, try some games without Fast Mana because you might actually like it. Because I actually think that does make for just like better overall gameplay. But it also is a content thing too.
Tide, though, I don't pay the 2 for Smothering. Like unless like I'm like late game, like you have a bunch of extra mana sitting around, then I'll pay the 2. But
and Gaia's Cradle is mostly because Tomer got beat by Vince with it a few times and got salty about it, so we crossed it off the list.
So let's talk historical context for people to understand. So these fast mana cards have appeared on our ban list multiple times. Like every season, we change the ban list. Some seasons we ban ultra staples for variety, right? So, for example, there is a season where we banned, let's say, Teferi's Protection or Mana Drain or Opposition Agent because we saw those cards happen a lot and they weren't necessarily overpowered, but we thought it'd be nice for that season to just, not have that card. But power level wise, for the reason that Tomer stated, where you get a lopsided game of like 3v1 immediately, like the fast mana has kind of always been there. But okay, let's start things off. Does the One Ring create a lopsided game? Right? Does it have that Sol Ring effect where you play it and you win, or you play it and then you lose and like do not, like your deck isn't seen, right? It's like a 3-player game and it's like some weird game that we don't want to be playing. Does the One Ring have that same effect as Sol Ring?
I would say yes. Like, I think so. It's a little slower because it's 4 mana. So this is happening like a couple of turns later in the game compared to the turn 1 Sol Ring. But I think the play pattern's pretty similar. Like when someone drops the One Ring, usually, unless they're like super far behind, like if they're at parity, the rest of the table has to team up and take out the One Ring player because you know what the One Ring does. Like it's going to draw them 1 card, then 2, then 3, and next thing you know, after a couple of turns, they're drawing a new hand every turn and just outpacing the whole rest of the table. So I think it really is the same thing. Like you have to team up to take out the Sol Ring player. Either you fail at that goal and the Sol Ring player or the One Ring player runs away with the game or wins, or you achieve that goal and then that person sits there for like an hour while you finish the game. And in some ways, it's even worse because the One Ring's indestructible in an artifact. So it's actually like kind of difficult for some of the most popular removal spells to get rid of. So it's not like you have the option to just generous gift it or beast within it. So a lot of times you have to go with player removal and you have to take them all the way out of the game or else they're going to draw 7 cards and potentially recover even if you get them low on life. So I feel like it does have a lot of the same play patterns as Sol Ring.
I don't see the problem with it, to be honest with you. Like the card doesn't feel any different than any other bomb that like that you would normally play. The table teams up on you anyways, and I don't know. It doesn't feel that bad. The card advantage. There's lots of card advantage engines out there. This just feels like another one of them. The only thing that I could see being annoying was you passively, without even having to try, if you just play certain colors, it's easier for you to loop the One Ring. Like it's easy for me to just bounce it or clone it or do anything along those lines, or copying an opponent's One Ring and stuff like that. So you get in these weird circles where, like, that one game where you had protection from everybody, and then I had protection from everybody, and then then Richard just sat there. He's like, well, I'm not doing anything, so your go. But yeah, otherwise, is it really any worse than anything else, any other nonsense that goes on in Commander?
But I mean, like, set the nonsense aside. Like, what do you think of the play pattern, though? Like, is it the same thing where it's like someone plays the One Ring and we have to take them out of the game and then they sit there for an hour, or else they win? Like, is that like isn't that like a not great play pattern? I always hate games where someone has to sit there for an hour while everyone else plays. Those are my least favorite games of Commander Clash, where like someone sits there looking sad puppy dog face in the camera for like an hour and a half, and they're like, like I wish they were still alive. But you played the One Ring. What was I supposed to do? It's like the Phil problem.
No, but actually, right there, you said it. I played the One Ring. I went out guns blazing and rode this high into the ground, right? Like, it's like, yo, I knew what I did. I knew I was playing this draw engine. People can die in Commander. They should know that. So,
but then you also didn't die for like 2 hours. You played the wrong ring and he kept copying it, and people were like, he has to die. And you were like, well, I protect you from everything every single turn.
Honestly, good work ethic. You just got to sometimes want it more, like they say in sports, dude. And, you just got to want me dead more and harder. That's what it is.
So it does make the arch enemy pattern, but turn 4 is like vastly different than turn 1. And typically, if you play it on turn 4, you're probably going to die, like as the One Ring player, because you don't have the mana to, do broken things with it. So like if it's coming down turn 7 or 8 or something, like, is it that bad that you become arch enemy and the game ends? Like, I feel like by the time the One Ring becomes a problem, people have like kind of played their decks. Whereas Sol Ring is like vastly different, right? Like, it's like turn 1. I haven't even taken a turn yet, and this guy's popping off already, and like it's now a 3-player game. So it comes later, and that later lets you play your decks, right? And also, like, it's not a guaranteed like win, right? Like, you get protection for 1 turn. You're just drawing cards. Like, it's not like the turn 3 Rhystic Study players probably outdrawing you at this point, right? Like, it's that protection is annoying, but like it's not like a free win. Like, we've seen on this season, you've cast the One Ring and died many times. You've also cast the One Ring and won many times, right? But it's not like a guaranteed victory as soon as you slam the One Ring.
I mean, isn't there research that Sol Ring actually decreases your win percentage on turn 1? I don't find the argument very convincing. Like, I feel like you play turn 1 Sol Ring and you don't always win. Like, you play turn 1 Sol Ring and you don't always win. So I don't know how that's
balanced,
like,
right? It just makes a weird game. Like, it just makes a 3-player game, but it's like probably net balance in terms of win percentage, right? As long as you're not like pub stomping your group. But like the One Ring is like that, but turn 4. But in reality, it's turn 7 or turn 8, right? Like, you've kind of played your deck at that point. If you can't deal with it, you can't deal with it.
I think for every single, like, the One Ring hasn't guaranteed victory. I think more often than not, whoever plays the One Ring doesn't end up winning the game. I think there was like 1 or 2 games where, they did just win the game.
Wait, have we had that happen? I feel like
so.
every time the One Ring has hit the board, the person's lost.
I've definitely won with the One Ring. But only as a
Richard,
fog. Like, I played it as a 4-mana fog, and like that was it. Like, I didn't even draw a card from it.
That's where it's mostly used. I think every single time somebody has played the One Ring, it guarantees that, first of all, the game is warped around that card. Like, the game suddenly becomes about the One Ring. The game was about something else before, and then the One Ring is played, and then the game is about the One Ring. So I don't really like that aspect of the card, because it's colorless, so it can show up in every single deck. So if everybody's running it, then we're going to have a lot of games going forward where we have a theme, we have something that we want to showcase, and then the One Ring shows up, and then the game is about the One Ring, which kind of sucks, because if like our play style is trying to show off jank every single week, that kind of shadows what we're currently doing. I don't think it's like busted in our group, because again, like, most of the time I think the One Ring player does lose. However, I will say every single time the One Ring player plays the One Ring, they basically guarantee not to die first. I think every single time, like Richard, for example, he played the One Ring when we were doing Nephilim Week. Well, Richard was going to die if he didn't play the One Ring. He played the One Ring, he lived. I think same with Krim. Krim was like in a weird situation where he could die. He plays the One Ring. He's not going to die. Somebody else dies instead. That's how it's always like. It always seems like it's ending up being. So it's always huge. It's a huge play. It like takes you from losing to not losing and possibly winning. Yep. But I think overall, every single time the One Ring shows up, the game becomes about the One Ring. And I don't know if that's like, if it shows up not that often, then I'm fine with it. Like, happens every once in a while. But like, if it's every single game, that's when I'm a little bit worried. And I mean, that's my worry is if everybody's running it. I don't run the One Ring.
So this is the Primeval Titan argument, right? Like, once Primeval Titan hits the battlefield, the game is about Primeval Titan. Like, everyone's trying to clone it. Everyone's trying to steal it and attack. And like, you know, I think we all think Primeval Titan shouldn't be banned because it's 6 mana. It's kind of laughable. But like, it's the same argument where the game is warped around it. With the One Ring, it's even more extreme because as the player, you're like, maybe I should cryptic command my One Ring and like play it again. Yeah. And, you know, like maybe I should clone someone else's One Ring and then, you know, get the stuff, right? But is that a problem? Because if we take a look at like any strong card in Commander, isn't the game like warped around it? Like the minute a Rhystic Study hits the table, the game is about, do you pay the one? It's about Rhystic Study. Right?
We banned Rhystic Study.
We did ban
but it's not banned in the general community. Right? And if Seth wasn't here, we might not have it banned.
You can unban it. You can unban it. We'll see how I'm going to play Rhystic Study
like
every
Mana
Drain
or just Counterspell, right? The minute a blue player has 2 blue mana up, the game is warped around this Counterspell. Teferi's Protection, white player has 3 mana up, like a Wrath ends the game not in your favor. Right? So there are all these cards that kind of just warp the game and just blow out the game. Is the One Ring any different?
I think the One Ring, there's a couple of reasons it's different. So for one thing, it sticks around. So I don't really like the like Counterspell comparison because that's like a one-shot thing that's going to happen and then the game moves on. The One Ring is going to keep impacting the game for like as long as that player lives, most likely. So that's one difference. The other difference is it's colorless. That's the biggest problem with this card. Imagine Rhystic Study, but literally every single deck should play it if they want to have the optimal build of their deck. That's the problem with the One Ring. So you're going to see it from 4 players every single week, every single game. Like, that is the correct way to build your deck. I know Tomer said he doesn't play it sometimes. I imagine that's like budget considerations or something, but like from a power level perspective, though, like all of your decks would be better if you included it, right? Like, it would make your deck more likely to win that episode of Commander Clash.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like every single. Do we want like?
So your deck starts with 1 Soul Ring, and then 2 the One Ring, and then I could probably list 5 to 10 cards in the colors you're playing that will always show up in your list if you're trying to play optimal, right? Like Teferi's Pro is always in a white deck. So it's bad. Maybe it's bad for the general person because the One Ring is expensive, right? So Soul Ring is cheap, so people don't complain that you have to add it to every deck. But the One Ring is expensive. But on Commander Clash, that doesn't concern us, right? We have unlimited budget. So that doesn't affect us in the same way. But like Jeweled Lotus, like, is an expensive card that everyone would play if they could, or most commanders would play. Is that bad? I think our answer is yes, by the way. We've said this is bad, but like Wizards is going this direction, right? Like, you have staples and the staples are good. What do you do?
But
just ban all the
Wizards
staples?
But Wizards is also, with the weird exception of the One Ring, realize that colorless artifacts are especially risky because literally every deck can play them. And we've seen a big trend from Wizards to print colored artifacts so they don't show up every deck. Like Jeska's Will or like Teferi's Protection. They can all warp the game, but you're only going to see them some percentage of the time because of color identity rules. The One Ring is like so egregious because it's colorless. Like, I think that is the heart of the problem there for me. If it was a colored card that only some decks could play, I would be much more like, okay, I'll see it sometimes, but not all the time.
That makes certain colors like super OP and then other colors kind of useless. Doesn't this even the playing ground for everyone?
Well, I'm thinking about it from again, the Commander Clash perspective, where we want games to showcase like cool new cards every single time. I think if it was just like black or something, then we would see it less, and there would be less of a conversation. Because,
Well-
like, yeah, it will still warp games, but it won't warp so many games.
If it
But, like-
weren't for entertainment value, just
Yeah.
the sake of playing the game, do you think it's bad?
No. Well,
Aren't they
like,
one
if
and
it
the
was
same?
showing up in every single game, then yeah, it would be bad. But I don't think most people are putting $60 cards in all their decks, you know?
But like,
But, like,
it's
something
still a
that's
bad
entertaining
design,
to
though, right?
viewers is the same as entertaining to play. No, like it's very edge casey where they're not the same, right? Like
No, those are not the same. Those are not the same. Like 90%
what's the
of the
case
cards I
where
would
it's
normally
fun
play.
for us but like miserable for the viewers, or vice versa? Like those are
Salt
exceedingly
Week,
miserable for the
Stacks
people always
Week,
complain about, like,
Chaos
Cyclonic
Week, like
99.9% of my
weeks.
deck list that I don't. You know what's funny? That I don't even
That's
use
true.
on Commander Clash.
That's true.
You know how much?
Okay.
So our favorite, like one of the best performing Commander Clash videos is the Salt Week, where we all pilled the saltiest decks. People loved it. I kept
Didn't
like I
we
got
love it
DMs,
too?
the comment section. They loved it, but I swear to you, nobody would want to actually play those decks.
I
Like
thought that was one of the
act
best
like
games we
a
played,
regular
right?
occurrence.
And it shows.
I did enjoy that game, but I think that people
I enjoy
like to
that game,
see. One of the upsides of YouTube is you get to watch someone else do something, kind of the
Yes.
same way that like you get to watch someone open a $100,000 alpha starter pack that you will never get to experience. Kind of the same thing. You might not want to sit through someone locking you out of the game and Armageddon you, but you can watch someone else do it and fast forward through the boring parts and like enjoy that experience. So
but is
I
the
think
one
there's
ring
a
like that? Where like I
difference.
want to see someone get one ring, but I don't want it in real life, or I wish they would play more one ring so I know what to do. Like, do you think the one ring falls into that category?
I think if it was common, I don't think it's common in paper. Just throwing it out there, but I think if it was like every single game, the game was dictated by the one ring, I think people would be much more negative about it. But I
And
don't
I-
think that's going to be the case.
Is it mostly just cost? Is it basically the mana crypt problem essentially, where like
yes.
the card is busted and
Cradle,
everyone should
crypt,
play it, but
Jewel
you
Lotus
can't
problem.
I
do
mean,
it because it's so expensive?
Sol Ring's in every single deck, but like it's like $1.50 because it's printed in every single precon, so like it's not an issue. But I don't see people running Mana Crypt, even though everybody acknowledges that Mana Crypt is just as busted, if not more so. It's $150.
So does
Like-
price matter? So if like for us it doesn't, right? If
No.
the one ring was like 50 cents or like 500, I guess maybe 500 is too much, right? But like its current price versus like 50 cents, it doesn't matter for us, right? Because we are looking from entertainment value regardless of price.
I think it does play a role though, because one card this didn't come up in our ban list discussion, but we've kind of like soft banned original dual lands purely because they're expensive. They're not overpowered. They're perfectly fine. The problem is the reserve list makes them hundreds of dollars a piece. And it would be right for us to play them all the time because they're super cheap on Magic Online. And then if you want to like copy and paste one of our deck lists or use one of our deck lists, it's going to look like our deck costs $3,000 or something, even though the deck actually only costs like $200 just because of these lands. So I think having this card that is just going to up the cost of our decks by $50 every week, every deck, that's some amount of a negative. I don't know if that is enough to like push anyone in one direction towards banning it or not banning it, but it does add $50 to the cost of our decks.
I mean,
And
it's
it
not
does
different.
disadvantage budget decks.
I mean, budget decks are a lot of the commander staples are going to be, at a disadvantage for a budget deck. So let's just automatically write that off. But like, I will say that there's a lot of other staples that exist and are almost $50 as well that some of us play. Like example, on the average player, if you're there in blue, they're going to have Cyclonic Rift, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless they're on some weird like high ground, right, where they're like, nope, I'm above it. But like, it's going to be like Cyclonic Rift just freshly got reprinted, and it's still sitting at like about $30. That's not
Fierce
too far from.
Guardianship is like
Oh, I mean, yeah,
also $40, $38.
yeah. And
But
So the
you got to
problem
be a
with those
blue deck,
cards is,
so
like,
you'll see it
there's, like-
30% of the time.
There's
Okay.
an obvious substitute, not an obvious substitution, right? But you're like, oh, Fierce Guardianship, I'll just play Counterspell and acknowledge that it's worse. But like, there's kind of like a 1-for-1 there. Whereas the one ring, let's say you're in red. I'm like, give me that card draw. You're like, like it simply does not exist, right? You can only impulse draw usually. So there is that kind of argument to it where it's not an easy sub out of your list. I mean, I guess it is. You just put some generic card advantage in, but like, I guess nothing rivals the power which makes sense. I guess you're never going to
I mean,
rival
but
the power
like
of a
that's
staple,
the same, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
that rivals the power of like, you know, Rift, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like there's
Yeah.
things that do what Rift does, but it's not like to that level. So
Yeah.
in that,
But what's a
that's-
colorless card like that we have not banned? Because we banned Crypt, we banned Jeweled Lotus. Is there another colorless? Literally, we should all play a copy in our deck every week card that's like that.
Dousing Dagger.
Okay, well,
That's like $2.
Again, Dousing
sort of
Dagger.
body in mind. That's like,
Same.
you know, obviously the truth.
Banner
but-
Multicon.
But outside
Rifles.
of like sort of body in mind, I mean, like, what do you mean? Like in that level of power or cost?
Yeah, like
Cost.
both. Wait, money or power?
Well,
What are
I
the best
mean,
colorless
either,
cards?
I
Two
guess.
separate
Yeah, like,
things, right?
They'd be
'Cause,
like Jeweled Lotus. They'd be the fast mana, right? Like those are.
Which we've banned.
I mean, okay, well then what about the raw power of like something like Ugin the Spirit Dragon? We haven't banned that. That's like up there in power. It's like $25.
But that's just like a
It's-
sweeper, though. So it's not.
No,
We
but
also don't
but
see it.
It's not just a sweeper though, and like we don't see it because some like some people just, I don't know, people don't like Ugin, so they don't play it, right? It's that simple. Like, and I play Ugin. I think Ugin's
Okay.
sweet.
I think Ugin's a very specific deck kind of card, though, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Is
the
it?
I don't get to play good Ras, so like I'm super desperate and I got to go to Ugin.
It's not, but is it
Yeah.
even desperation when the card is like in raw power? Like it's super solid. I mean, I you don't see it that much, so I guess you're right. Like we don't see it as much as we probably should be playing it if we're just gravitating towards powerful cards. But
Like the
that's because we're
strongest
not-
artifacts are probably like the altars, but they're like very
Yeah.
deck specific. And then outside
So-
of that, it's all mana rocks. Like the most commonly played artifacts are the fair mana rocks, like signets and arcane signet and things like that. And then the unfair ones, like the Mox Diamond and the Jeweled Lotus and those kind of deals. And then there's like the One Ring in here. That's it. Wayfarer's Bauble is up there, but those are the most commonly played artifacts. There's nothing really like Teferi's protection level sitting in artifact outside of the One Ring.
I mean, yeah, the
So-
One Ring is the one. Like, you know, it's the One Ring. It is going to be very much so better than like any other colorless card. And I don't know. I guess I just don't see the problem with it.
So I have a question because we were talking about like Ugin and how we don't actually run it. Do we run the One Ring in all our decks? Because like I said, if I'm running budget, you know, obviously I'm not running this card, and I try to go budget. So I would say most of my decks, even though One Ring is available, I don't run it. Is
Yeah.
that the case for every? Like, do we actually run it in every single deck?
No,
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
put it in all my decks.
It's,
The
so
only reason I
time you
don't is
wouldn't
if I
run it
feel
is
guilty.
Power level considerations. But
Yeah.
even then, I'm not sure it works out. You're like, I'm playing like, you know, Baragon humans or something. It's like a bad deck, right? I'm like One Ring. I'm just drawing more bad cards. It's probably fine, right? Probably not. It's probably still strong, right?
Yeah, it's probably still strong.
But the only consideration is I don't try to loop it. Like I
Yeah.
don't like the minute you put the One Ring in your deck, you're like, well, I should put Phyrexian Metamorph. Why not? Like I should put something that bounces, like Capsize, right? I should put, you know, whatever, right? Like there are things you start adding that are like decent enough on their own, but with the One Ring become insane. So I try to avoid those. But again, like they just accidentally happen, right? Like there's gonna be like some random card that clones or bounces or copies or, you know, some Skullwinder type thing, and then you're gonna end up accidentally looping it. So I feel it's hard.
I don't know
to
how you
not-
get in a Skullwinder situation if they're getting
Yeah.
rid
Well,
of it. It's
someone
getting
you sack
exiled.
your One Ring or something, Skullwinder it back, or I
Okay.
don't know, right? Like there's like weird
red.
lines that always come up that you did not intend. You know, it's like I accidentally comboed with Underworld Breach or something, right? Like okay, right? Like it just happens so easily.
For me, the One Ring, it combines the Soul Ring problem we talked about earlier of like the arch enemy play pattern with a little bit of the Paradox Engine problem, which is like we saw a Paradox Engine. You play it, and because most decks are running mana rocks, you kind of like accidentally combo just by playing it in a generic deck. And the One Ring kind of does that too, right? Like even if you're not intentionally trying to loop it, you're probably playing Internal Witness. Maybe you have untapped stuff like Seedborn Muse, which is just like one of the most played green creatures in the format that's just like incidentally letting you draw an infinite number of cards. Maybe you're having clones in your deck for other reasons. So I think it like accidentally ends up doing those things like Richard is saying. So I think that's another vote against the One Ring is just you don't even have to intentionally be trying to do those things. It's just going to happen. Like the most egregious example we saw in Commander Clash was, I think the game where Krim was like constantly copying it and looping it. And you didn't build your deck to do that, right? That wasn't your goal. It just sort of like worked out that way, that you had infinite protection forever.
We do reference the infinite loop, right? A bit, but what the context to that is that the infinite loop only happened because it was a very weird situation where Seth or someone else had to have another piece for me to copy, and then for me to also sack the clone, bring back the clone, and keep copying your it's like a grave digger but with a changeling attached to it.
Oh yeah,
Graveshifter.
Graveshifter. I had to keep using my creature clones, copying Graveshifter to bring back a clever imposter, and
but that's the point, right? Like.
But sure, if
you're a smart cookie, you'll figure it out, Krim. like of the pieces that are in your deck naturally, you could probably piece together some way to
I don't think that's something I'm gonna do often, right? I was playing a clone deck. I was just trying to clone Nazguls, right?
Deck.
Like,
yeah.
Like
But remember the other game where Seth had the One Ring, and then all of a sudden he was dying, and then his goal was not like get a sweeper, or his goal was not to stabilize. His goal was to dig for a Cryptic Command to bounce the One Ring, to cast the One Ring again. And he obviously didn't put Cryptic Command in his deck for this purpose, right? He was a Hilda deck. He was using it to tap, but like you will have random pieces that synergize, and you will try for this. But again, it's like super janky. He ended up dying because he couldn't dig hard enough for it, right? Like it's super janky, and maybe we should just let people do creative things to loop.
If you want to work and like really work for it, go for it.
Like, if you want a 6-card combo, bounce the One Ring, like sure, like you did it.
I don't. My problem though with this is what is the goal of Command and Clash? Like, what are the goal of these decks? Are we trying to showcase some sweet new cards every single time, or are we okay with a high probability of the One Ring being the name of the game for the episode? If everybody's running
the One Ring player draws more cards and shows
if everybody's
cards from
running
their
the One Ring in their deck, then yes, there probably is a high probability that the One Ring shows up in that game and then it warps it. But like that's why I was asking, like, because I don't run the One Ring most often. And then if Krim doesn't run the One Ring most often, maybe that's not even an issue. Maybe it's like the Ugin thing.
So we do this, by the way. So like cards like Insurrection, we don't typically play. Like we're like, I'm playing, mono red humans or something, right? And then you play no humans, you cast an Insurrection, and then you kill the table. And then you're like, did you showcase anything from that deck? Right? And then the answer is no. I
showcased all of your decks.
Yeah, but like usually we're like, oh, that like cheapens the victory, right? So if you have like a really sweet deck, but then you slam the One Ring at some point, and then you proceeded to win, everyone's like, oh, no, not whatever your combo or synergies, it doesn't matter, right? You played the One Ring and you won, and it kind of like diminishes what the rest of the deck does, which is, I think, Tomer's point there, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess for me, I don't, unless it's like, you showed up and you said your deck was warriors and there was like, or like, I don't know, like rogues, and I played only one rogue or something. That's a different thing. But like for the most part, I don't see how any of that diminishes the win of a deck anyways. And
I mean, it's definitely happened. Remember I played like a Dockside into like some weird combo, and then you guys like, whatever, Richard, like that was a Dockside.
You just won with Dockside.
Or you're like, forget Kiskin, you just Smothering Tithe on turn 4 and won the game, right? I'm like, like kind of, right?
Okay.
So it does actually diminish it to some part. I don't know like how extreme, but it is a factor, right?
The One Ring does that though. I see. What's funny here is I still think Dockside is infinitely worse than the One Ring,
because it's faster.
I mean,
right? If the One Ring costs 2 mana, it'd be like Dockside level, right? Like,
I think they both warp the game very quickly and catapult you ahead.
I think One Ring warps the game slowly, right? Like very, very slowly.
Also very consistently, because you have protection from everything and it's indestructible. So it's like,
so it's probably sticking around.
If I'm in blue, maybe I had a counter spell for it. Did you have
so speaking of counter, we've made it like a foregone conclusion that it warps the game. What if we just answer it? What if we just play cards to play around the One Ring?
Okay.
Does that really like throw your deck like off?
Someone said this on Twitter when I posted about this. Oh, just build better decks, play more interaction. Yeah, sure, we could do that. But remember, the goal is for us to have an entertaining game. We could everyone play a Krim deck every week, and the One Ring and any other card you can name would not be a problem. But do you really want to watch 4 control decks battle it out every week on Commander Clash? Is that what the viewers want?
You don't
between
need to
the
ask me
table,
that,
40
right?
wraths, 80 counter spells, like, is that going to be what people want to watch? And I would say
Richard,
no. I would not watch
Bossman,
that.
Codfather, I don't need to answer that question, right? Like I don't have to answer that. Okay.
Oh, I think it's sad that I have to actually clarify. I'm going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but we're not a CDH channel. I don't know, like every single time we have a discussion, there's going to be being like, oh, I can't even understand why this is a problem. Why don't they ban Thoracle instead of the one? Like I literally saw that comment on Reddit. It's like, why are they banning Thoracle, not banning Thoracle when they're banning the One Ring? Like, what are they even doing? Like Adenoz is so much better than the One Ring. I'm like, dude, like we're not a CDH channel. Just a heads up. Just that.
So the closest analogy then, based on what we're saying, is actually stacks pieces, right? Like we were trying to compare the One Ring to Teferi's Foe, but we should be comparing it to Drannith's Magistrate, right? It's a card that comes down that warps the game. You can't play your commander anymore, and you can answer it, right? But you need to play a lot of answers, and you need to be ready for it, right? And like the normal deck, even if you only have 5 spot removal spells, like it might be a while before you get there to like find something to remove Drannith's Magistrate. So we've kind of like soft banned stacks pieces because they warp the game. They're perfectly balanced, right? Like if you actually come prepared for them, and they probably lose you the game, right? Like if you play a stacks deck, you probably become arch enemy and die immediately anyway, unless like you've like really outpowered the table. So is the One Ring like just Drannith's Magistrate? Like something, some kind of stacks piece?
I don't even.
It sticks around. It's not a
Drannith's Magistrate ever being an issue on Clash. Like,
yeah, Drannith's Magistrate.
I never even knew it was soft banned. I just don't run it because I think it lowers my win percentage.
And it's annoying, right? Like if every week I brought a stacks deck, you guys wouldn't be able to show off your deck. It would
One
win the
Ring's not
game.
annoying.
It would
One
become
Ring
everyone
wins you
versus
games.
Richard. Right?
Yeah.
It's the One Ring effect, right?
No, but One Ring I think raises my win percentage, while Drannith's Magistrate actually lowers it.
Yeah.
Drannith's Magistrate is not that good of a card, as much as people like to make it out to a villain. Like, it is a 1/3 most of the time.
It's good in CDH. You
Sure,
know, you just
CDH,
need to
yes,
stick around
again.
for like a turn, and then you've sorted
We
on
kind
the
of
job.
just have a blanket
The winter
statement, right, that
orbs?
CDH is not.
I
We're
know,
not
but I
applying
have to
this to
reiterate
CDH.
because the comment section just like eviscerates, like, "Oh my god, you're not banning Adnons, but you're banning the One Ring." It's like, what? Come on.
I think the comparison though does stand in one way, which is like once a Winter Orb or Drannith Magistrate hits the battlefield, the conversation
Winter Orb
of
and
the game,
Magistrate
everything
are not
about
the
the
same.
game becomes about that card for as long as it sticks around. And I
Yeah.
think if for our goals to be entertaining, I'm actually curious if we think that's a positive. Like,
Yeah.
let's say every Commander Clash game, there's a half hour derailment into someone playing the One Ring and everyone trying to answer the One Ring. Is that what we want every week? Like, isn't that just like repetitive and like boring YouTube? Like, I think that would be my biggest argument is I feel like it's just bad YouTube. Like, sure, like it's probably good gameplay and it's like whatever, good magic, but I don't know if that's our goal is to like play the tightest magic. I think our goal is to make the best video possible. And if every video is this, it's same as Ristic Study. The biggest reason we banned it wasn't it was overpowered. It's that it derailed the conversation, was always the focus of the game. And people got sick of it eventually, that all we did was every game spend 10 minutes arguing about Ristic Study. So I feel like the One Ring's like does the same thing, right? As far as how it just like takes over the conversation and the focus of everyone.
I mean,
That's only because we can't answer it. So let's talk
indestructible
answers for a
artifact.
second. Okay, let's talk about answers for a second. Like, what
Farewell.
are reasonable
Farewell.
answers to the One Ring? And can like the average deck actually answer it? And is it like unreasonable to answer it? Like a card like Armageddon is unreasonable to answer for a lot of decks, right? Because the answer
Yeah.
is something like Counterspell or like hold all your lands, like make it to 4 mana,
or
hold your
Teferi's
lands, or something
or
weird
heroic
that
intervention.
you really don't
heroic
want to be
intervention.
doing. It like requires you to kind of warp your deck, right? Or like let's say you want to fight stacks, right? You need lots of removal to remove the stacks pieces. And we don't all want to play control decks. We want to play like our jank deck, right? And a normal jank deck can't, fight against that. Or like say Thoracle, right? The reason you don't play Thoracle in casual is it requires a very specific answer, which is counter spells or like some top deck manipulation. A lot of decks don't support that. So with that reference, how do you answer the One Ring? Let's. What are the possible answers we could use for the One Ring? And then we'll see if it's reasonable that most decks would run this or can run this.
I mean, Farewell, whatever, Return to Dust. There's, of course, like, doesn't that Exile, the white spell, Return to Dust?
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Return
I don't
to
remember
Dust
if that
destroys
Exile
two-
destroys.
Is it Exile?
Exiles
It
two
does
things.
exile.
Yeah,
okay.
it exiles.
So that does work.
So the new generous gift, Excise the Imperfect Exiles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, lots of like you have Anguished Unmaking. You're seeing a lot more.
We're naming a bunch of white cards.
So
maybe white
blue can
exile.
counter
White,
it,
black.
white can
Blue can
exile
counter
it.
it.
Yeah,
Red technically has exile artifact effects, but they're not normally cards that you would want to run in your
Chaos
deck, I don't
Warp.
think.
You can
Chaos
Chaos
Warp
it.
is already
Does
in the
work.
deck.
It's risky, but
I mean,
green
Pithing Needle,
can-
Karn,
What's
Karn,
exile in green?
yes.
I'm sure green has something.
Stony Silence.
So first was exile removal. Now
Yep.
artifact disablement, right? So like
Yeah.
Pithing Needle, Collector Oof, Stony Silence.
Do we
Yeah.
really want to be like collector oofing though? Like that's
No.
just absolutely.
I mean, that'd be a
Why-
card
why
that
not?
you don't reasonably want to play in your deck, right?
Yeah, it's just like
Why
I
not?
don't know.
I
Because
mean,
then you
those
just like
cards are
crush
fine.
somebody who just has like a couple mana rocks and then just can't play the game.
that's
Not even an
but, like,
artifact deck.
Like, yo, okay, I am such. Look, I'm all for having a good time, but like, legitimately, just because a card or some kind of thing inconveniences a game plan, I don't think
Yeah.
it's like, yo, dude, if I am going to lose to a Collector Roof, which again, like, I want to build the timey-wimey suspend deck, I'm gonna have 25 ways to answer Jonathan Magistrate. Because that card literally hoses anything that's
Yeah.
playing suspend, right?
But then how do you have
but
room
we
to play
know this
your,
doesn't
build your
apply.
deck?
Well, because there's still versatile answers, right? Like, I can play a braid, I can play, like, Magic has made answers, like, it's there's no shortage of answers in
Yeah.
current Magic.
But we
So,
know this is not good. This
I
is an
think it's just-
unpopular opinion, right? We can never use stacks as an answer to anything because
It's-
most people dislike stacks and will disallow it in their play group.
First
Right.
off,
So the other answer is deny card draw, right? So like Narset,
Notion Thief,
Yeah.
Notion
Yes, let's
Thief.
Notion
Masters.
Thief. That's
Like,
the
I
solution
think
to all
these
of
are
life's
cards that we
problems.
don't want to encourage more of because they're like
No,
highly
why not?
salty cards. Because
It
the
wasn't-
community has decided they're salty, right? So
But people are, the thing is, by 2050, Magic players are going to be salty by just something they don't want to see, right? Like, oh, you're playing you played a ramp spell, I'm salty. Like, right? Like,
So-
I don't want to see that.
So I didn't mean for Collector Roof that it's salty, therefore don't run it. I mean, like, I thought it was a bad answer to the One Ring. Because the way I see the oof happening is like you drop the oof, you screw over anybody who has mana rocks, so they're going to remove it, and then the
Sure.
person who has the One
Yes.
Ring just plays the One Ring, and then the game is good for them, you know. So
classic
I-
stacks problem.
No,
it's the same thing with like Magistrate. Like these cards
Yes.
are really good when the average game length is like 5 turns, you know, because you just need to lock down you need to lock down your opponents long enough for you to find your win, and then that's it. But like if we're going for like 12 turn games, if you do like a turn 2 oof, I don't know, you're just going to draw the ire of the table. That's the same reason with the Magistrate.
Sure.
You draw the ire of the table. The person with the busted thing is going to wait until everybody dogpiles that person with the stacks piece. The stacks piece gets removed, and then the busted thing happens, and it's like, oh, well.
Why is that? I
Jeez.
guess maybe I'm just, again, it's playstyle and preference. I don't
Yeah.
see why that's a problem. You problem solved, and now you solve the next one.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
actually
the
leaning-
answer is the stacks piece is not actually an answer because most people don't play around it correctly. Right? Like Tomer said, as soon
I mean,
as
I
you
think
let's say
most
I'm
people don't
staxing
play
the
around
storm
anything,
player,
so.
and then there's like 2 fair players at the table, and they're like, my 1 mana rock is disabled. I'm very upset. They will murder me, and then like unlock the storm player to win the game. Happens every single time in CDH all the time. Like people do not know how to play around it. So I think Tomer's correct in that these are not viable answers because they don't actually work because like people don't play around them correctly, but they are some kind of answer, right? And maybe, you know, you can make them work, but
I mean,
the other aspect we haven't talked about is the protection aspect, right? You can get around that part too, right? If you
damage
have
can't be prevented in
damage
red,
can't be prevented
basically.
clauses, right? So red spells very often have it, like Bone Crusher Giant. I can't think of anything
Skull
else.
Crack.
Skull Crack.
Yeah.
Cards
Are we
we
gonna
don't
be
typically
running
play.
This sounds.
Are we
this
going to be
sounds
running damage can't be
miserable.
prevented cards? Like, are we running literally sideboard cards into our main deck because we anticipate a single card showing up? Is that not bad. I think that's unhealthy
no, this
for
is
our
assuming
show.
that you think that the card is bad. I do not, so that's why I do not care.
Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, though, you're playing Birds or Kithkin or some like janky fun theme. Do you really want to be playing Skull Cracks and Bone Crusher? Like things that literally do not fit in your deck for any reason because someone's going to One Ring? Like, is that...
But
Is that
don't
the
you
deck building
play
you
like
want?
artifact removal because someone might play some artifact spell that, you know, like
Yeah.
we do make concessions to these cards, right? Or you
I
have
mean,
cards
the way-
to deal with counterspell or a
But the thing
wrath
is, like,
or something, right?
Yeah, but the answer is like I play a Beast Within or a Generous, like a few catch-all answers, and the One Ring just gets around most of those because it's indestructible. So the catch-all answers that you're like, okay, if something goes really wrong, this will take care of any problem. The most popular ones in the format that most people play just don't work against the One Ring. Beast Within, Generous Gift, Cyclonic Rift.
Well, that
Does
doesn't-
that mean the
sounds
meta
like
needs to
Oracle.
change? Like the meta game
This
needs
kind of
to
sounds
adjust?
like Thoracle. Like we could just allow Thoracle, like go for like let's say everybody was running Thoracle in every single deck.
Yep.
We could counter it. Like we could all just play blue, right? And we just hold up our counter spells for whoever tries to go for Thoracle. But like, did
Why
we
is
want to do
Thoracle
that?
bad and casual? Or no, wait.
Why is Thoracle bad and casual?
Yeah, Thoughts is Oracle. Like,
I mean,
I'm
with
talking
demonic
No,
about,
consultation.
I mean,
yeah,
demonic
with the
consultation.
combo.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not just the card alone. Yeah, but that's different. That's entirely different.
Yeah.
It's not even close to the same thing because, like, casually, no one's
No, it's
actually
more that we have
playing.
to like retool all of our decks to deal with one specific card.
Seems easier.
Is it
just
that
to
the
Thoughts
have
norm
a
is
going
card.
forward?
Oracle?
Though? I feel like Wizards keeps printing powerful cards, and you need to, for example, in 2015 or 2013, we didn't all deal with rats. We're just like, whatever. Like, you just play your stuff and you attacked, and people didn't go wrath crazy. Now we're like, oh, we gotta deal with wraths, right? Or Teferi's Pro. Who played around Teferi's Pro back in the day? Nobody, because it didn't exist. Now you got to
Nobody
play
still
around
does.
it. Right now, you
I
got to
know,
play
yeah,
around
you
the
just-
free
you
spell
just search
cycle,
with
right? You got to
wins.
remove commanders on site so that their free spells stop. So, what if the new meta is you have to have damage prevention? Is that reasonable? Or you have to have, let's say, exile-based removal. Like,
I
you
mean,
can't
you should
have
have-
destroy removal. It's not good enough anymore. Is that
I think you should
reasonable?
just have exile removal regardless, right? Because of recursion, not because of the One Ring getting bounced, but like things getting looped from the graveyard. So I think you should already be running that.
So I mean, yeah, you can customize your removal. That's probably wise to do. Like, I don't think that's like customizing your removal for what you want to answer is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know if that deals with most of the problems the One Ring presents. Like, even if you do that, you're not always going to have those. If you play them out where you're always going to have those, it leads to games that aren't very fun or entertaining for anyone. So I don't know if it actually like solves our issue, but sure, like play Anguished Unmaking over Generous Gift or something if you're in the colors, like that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the play pattern thing to me, if we're worried about play pattern, is it not the same thing as just any other win con or bomb?
But we never came up with another card that compares to this that's colorless and literally should go in every deck. Like
Okay.
that's the part that stopped me. Like,
But
if you
every
give me a
deck
colored
has a bomb.
card,
Every deck has a bomb. Every
but it's
deck
a different
has an engine.
it's a different bomb. We're seeing a different card every time. You're winning with a different thing every time. Like my how I view this is if the One Ring is legal, I will play it in literally every single deck, bar none, until you guys ban it. And even if I don't want to play it, what's going to happen in my head? It's like a attempt with Discovery. What's going to go on my brain is, well, Richard is probably going to play it, so I have to play it to keep up with Richard, even if my deck, I really didn't want to play it this week. So I think that's the overarching issue for me is like the prevalence of it, that it's just correct to play in every single deck. So you can, if I see your bomb, like, yes, there's tons of bombs in Commander, but this one is just colorless and is correct to play in every deck. And it'll show, even when I play in my decks, I found that it is often the correct card for me to tutor up. If I have a tutor in my deck and I'm not sure what I want, often the right answer is just get the One Ring and start drawing a bunch of cards, because that's going to find me everything that I want. So not only is it like, I hope to draw it, I even hope to tutor it up if I have a tutor.
So
Oh, you see, so you play tutors.
So Seth actually won me over. I'm pro at least letting it stay for the rest of the season, because the season's probably wrapping up in like 5 more episodes or whatever. And then we can see how our answers can solve it. I think that's where I'm at. But I'm definitely leaning on like if things keep going the way it does, we should ban it. However, I just want to be devil's advocate. Like, I know, like, when I'm going to cons and when I go to my game store, I play a lot. I play a lot of paper Commander. I also have 2 different regular Commander play groups. A lot of us just don't run cards because it's, like, too powerful. Like, we kind of self-regulate ourselves. For example, one of my play groups actually follows the Commander Clash house ban list. And not my influence at all. It was before I met them. They already was running like no Sol Ring and stuff. And I was the guy who actually was the only person at the table who would ever have Sol Ring in any of my decks. I recently took out Sol Ring from my decks, which is wild. It took me that long of complaining about it to actually take it out. And I'm going to go to like the Vegas or whatever, and I'm going to expect all other decks are going to have Sol Ring in them. But that doesn't stop me from taking it out. I mean, like I've decided, because I think whenever Sol Ring shows up, the game is going to be less interesting if it shows up turn 1. So I'm going to take it out of mine so I don't have the chance of making the game less interesting. That's all.
You are a better person than me, Tomer, because I was going to say literally the opposite. I hate Sol Ring and never play it, but when I go to Magic Con, I feel like I always have to have Sol Ring because everyone else is going to have it. So, like, I need it just to keep up with everyone else.
You stop being so sweaty.
I was playing it until this year.
It's Magic Con. It's for fun. Come on.
What about
everyone
Rhystic
else
Study?
is doing it?
Do you run Rhystic Study? Because, like, it is objectively going to make every single blue deck better.
I mean, I don't have to pay the one for my own Rhystic Study, so there's no issues there.
I don't have
it avoids the whole problem.
I haven't had a Rhystic Study in any of my decks for like 6 years, and I'm fine with that. Like I play against Rhystic Study, it's fine.
Yeah,
I don't think Rhystic Study's a problem, but at the same, so like I don't mind playing against it, and I only have it in like half of my decks, and I have more than enough copies of Rhystic to put in all my decks.
Yeah.
I just feel like some decks don't need it.
With the Rhystic Flex.
My point is that like you don't have to run the One Ring just because you expect other people to. That's all. Like I took out Sol Ring, and I fully expect I'm not gonna say a single thing like, oh, you're running Sol Ring in a game, and neither did my play group. They said they're not running Sol Ring, and I was the one who was running it, and now I took it out, and that's just how it is, you know.
What if we unban Sol Ring in Clash?
That's some like weird Rule Zero thing, right? Like if we're talking like policy things, you can't expect people to do the right thing, because like if you're just jamming a random game at Command Fest,
the right
like
thing?
is the One Ring solid or not? Like you're playing with these people the first time, the only time, it's your one game. Like you can't do this power calibration, or you may not have the expertise to do it, or whatever, right? So
the wording in the narrative we've already gone in has just auto written it as this is the boogeyman. This is a problem. This is right? Because the way you've spoken about it right now is the right thing. Tomer is like, oh, I just don't play these cards, right? Like, so you three are firmly in agreement then that it is actually just a bad thing for Commander.
Oh, I was talking about Sol Ring. I think Sol Ring is bad for Commander, but like,
sure.
I'm not going to
I
preach
agree with that
every
too,
single.
But the One Ring.
Oh well, I put the One Ring in my Selenia Life Swap deck, but like I don't put it in all my other decks.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I have them like only in like 2 decks of mine, and I don't view it as a problem. So, like, yeah, like I wouldn't even see it as the right thing. I'm just curious because like the wording and the narrative of it seemed like y'all are already just for sure agreeing that it's a bad thing.
I mean, it ups the power level.
I think it was a design
but
mistake.
Having a more powerful deck doesn't mean you win more, right? Because if you're in a pod with lesser powerful decks, they'll see that and like 3v1 you, and then the 3v1 will probably work, right? So I do think it is a powerful card, but it doesn't necessarily up your win percentage. But I do agree with Krim in the narrative. What I don't like about banning the One Ring is like so this is content creator mode, right? We set an example for the community, right? A lot of people listen to what we say. And if we are like, after 4 games, we haven't really done anything, cards OP, ban it. Like, isn't that the exact thing we don't want Magic players to do, to just yell ban anytime they see a card they don't like? Like, have we actually tried answering it or working around it or, you know, normalizing it, given what it is? Or are we doing what everyone does, is jump straight to the ban hammer, like, oh, this card is winning, ban it, right? Like, I feel that could be bad. Like that's we do it for our play group, we do it for better content, but at the same time, a lot of people just look at that as like, oh, this must be correct, right? And
I think most people don't know what our ban list is, to be honest.
But they do know if we ban it or not, right? Like as soon as we declare that it's being banned, they're going to take it out of context and run with it, right? So
I do think that we as content creators, right, with there's a disconnect, right, where we build decks, we have things that just aren't allowed because of content, right? But like that, I think because of that, it kind of becomes this written in stone. Oh, but that's just proper etiquette, and I don't think that there's a huge disconnect there, and I actually. That's why I try my best to literally build as close as I can to what I play in paper. Because I think that I get yelled at for it a lot, and I'm okay with that. And because I think that people need to understand that certain types of Magic still exist and should exist.
I think I disagree. I think as content creators, isn't our responsibility to make the best content possible? And if that means banning the One Ring, our responsibility isn't to maybe someone will misunderstand why we banned this overpowered card they should have never printed anyway. Is that our primary responsibility, or is our primary responsibility how can we make a fun video that people want to watch?
Well,
and if that means the One Ring is not a part of it, it's not a part of it.
Sportsmanship, right? We exhibit good sportsmanship because people watch us, right? And we influence people, right? We don't do jerk moves because that's not what we want to propagate, right? So it's kind of in that sense, right? If we just after preview season outright ban the One Ring before doing anything about it, that kind of sets some kind of precedent, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? But it sets an example behavior that people might look at. And maybe I'm being we're thinking too highly of ourselves, right? But I think it is a consideration, which is why if we were to ban it, I would say we ban it after completing the season rather than mid-season, right? To give us some more games to feel out the One Ring, and then just ban it for the sake of variety or something, right? But I just don't like how most people don't know what the answer to the One Ring is, or what's plausible or what is reasonable, and they're just oh, this card's good, I don't want to deal with it.
Ban it.
But I wonder if it's a problem that doesn't even need solving, because if it's $50 and not many people play it in paper, maybe we're teaching them the wrong thing, that they need to play Bone Crusher Giant in all their decks to answer a card that they're likely never going to actually play against because they're playing paper where people don't put $50 cards in every deck.
First off, to answer Seth and whatnot, is that what we as content creators should be doing? Yes, we should be making the best video, but I like thinking that it's a lot like wrestling, right? People know wrestling's fake, or at least I hope that. If that's a spoiler, I'm so sorry, everyone. I ruined your life.
Games are fake, Crim.
Okay, no, our games aren't fake, but obviously, in the world of wrestling, right? There's there's these people don't actually pile driver people in real life, right? You know what I mean? So I do think though that people, I don't advocate for Bone Crusher Giant. But I am going to say people should just be playing more exile removal in general, regardless of the One Ring, right? You should be building for random archetypes that hate you out anyways, or things that hate your whole archetype out. And so with that, I guess the thing though is I don't view the One Ring as something that is so warping that I need to put a Bone Crusher Giant in, right? So my stance on this is that I don't I think it's a card you need to kill the person that has it, sure, but I don't mind. And it's a slow build. Their card advantage is going to be slow.
You play a single card, and it doesn't matter what happened before the game. Now you must kill the person who has that
there's
card.
so many.
I don't think that's always true.
I
don't think that's always true, though. I don't think that's always.
Has there
true.
ever been a situation where the person plays the One Ring and then?
I think Seth played a One Ring when Crim was popping off or something, and he got away with 4
No, because he had the One Ring as well. He copied Seth's One Ring.
Crim was super popping off hard or something, so we all had to stop Crim. And then
wasn't that when he copied Seth's One Ring?
No, it was a different game. It was a different game.
There's been a lot of One Ring games already.
Alpha level threat, but someone plays an Alpha plus level threat, right? And then you're well, I see you, but I can't do anything about it.
Sure.
But to Seth's point, relatability. If no one plays the One Ring and we play it, it looks weird. The same way we don't play original duels Like most people do not play original duels, so we don't play duels. But of course, we've thrown that out the window with Sol Ring, right? Most people play Sol Ring.
Yeah.
We do not play Sol Ring, but we believe like net overall that's positive. But this could be a non-issue altogether. Like if no one's playing the One Ring in paper, then we should probably just follow them. Like we try to play a meta that looks like what a normal player's meta looks like.
No way.
But maybe that's
Well, without
broken
fast
altogether because
mana.
our cards are super expensive, right?
No way though. But like we play anime week, we play video game week. We just did Salt week. We unbanned the
I
Nephilim and
guess
we
that's
built
true.
Nephilim weeks. Our entire brand is about just bringing wild, super restrictive thematic things every single episode that I bet you 90%, 99% of the people who watch it would never build a deck like we do because we're just building like this weird theme weeks. Every single week is a theme week. So we're like we're so away from what a regular table would look like. That like yeah, if we house ban some stuff, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're just house baiting for the sake of trying to get a higher likelihood of a good game out of it. And that's the whole point
maybe
of
that's
the
why
ban
you
list.
and I don't play the One Ring as much though, Tomer, because we are. Before someone says that Crim Mana Drain isn't on theme, you still have to have your veggies so you could do the theme. All right. So the point is, I think that because we're always doing things thematically, I try to find a card advantage engine that's closer to a theme, right?
Same.
So, and like there are cards that I auto include, sure. Like there are cards I auto include because I think that you just need them. But I do not view the One Ring as one of those.
Isn't the One Ring just like veggies though? Like it's just card draw. Every
It
deck
might be-
needs
it
card
might be.
draw.
Don't
Like
you
it's
always
the,
put it as number 2 card in your deck?
But you can
if you're
find
playing
other
correctly?
card draw though.
Right.
Like it is replaceable. It's just the question is, are we going to replace it? Because like I can tell you, like if me and Crim, like if we're on the same page here, like if I'm playing a theme deck, then and One Ring doesn't fit my theme, I'm going to fit more thematic card draw. Yeah, it's obviously superior, but like I don't build the best
See,
decks
I hard
possible
disagree
every
with you
single
guys
time.
on that though, right? Like your theme deck's cool and all, but if you play no cards and die, like there is no theme to be seen. So to me, the One Ring is crucial for theme decks because it gives you the power to play all your terrible on theme cards, right? Like to actually survive, stretch it out, play more cards. So to me, if I'm playing a theme deck, the One Ring becomes even more crucial, right? Because I need to survive and I need to draw more cards. Just like you always play ramp, you always play card draw. Like no one's going to replace their 2-mana ramp with like 5-mana ramp on a 5/5 beast or something. You're like, oh, this is on theme now. This is my ramp, right? You're like, no, your deck is like
but-
dysfunctional, right? Like you have to
even
have that 2-mana ramp, right?
But even your ramp is dependent on your theme, right? Like if you're in a creature heavy deck, then you're probably going to lean towards mana dorks. If you're in like an artifact deck, then obviously mana rocks become much more.
But that's because it
useful to
improves
you.
your deck. Do you ever actively decrease your deck 2 power levels just to stay on theme?
Yes.
Sometimes I have.
My whole gimmick is budget.
I mean, that's different though.
I mean, budget's
That's 'cause
its
you have
own
a budget,
thing.
right?
That's like you have this extra restriction. So I think budget you obviously
but does
wouldn't play
does it
it.
not lower? Do you think my deck would not be stronger if I didn't have a budget restriction?
Well,
Yeah, it would. But I
No,
mean,
your
so
deck would be
budget is like
stronger,
a
but
hard
that's
limit, right? Whereas like flavor
Yeah.
or something is not a hard limit. It's a gradient, right?
Why
So
don't
you can
just
choose.
pick a flavorful card trust. I don't know.
I don't know though. Like, I don't know. People aren't dropping Cyclonic Rift for the bad fairy 6-mana bounce some things. So like, that's just not how we play Magic.
Hi.
Seth, did you not see my deck list?
Hi.
Also, you're right though. I didn't drop it. I just played it alongside.
So shouldn't you not play Cyclonic Rift because it's not on theme with fairies? Like, isn't that the same exact argument
But
that we're
it's a
having?
pillar.
Or like,
But it's a pillar.
How is? But isn't the One Ring a
Ring is a
pillar?
pillar
Like,
of
I
all
don't think
decks,
the One
right?
Ring is literally a
I
pillar.
said though,
I see
I
it
don't
as a
view
Cyclonic
One
Rift,
Ring as
but-
a pillar though. I don't think.
Oh, well, we
like,
just have a fundamental difference in our understanding of the power of the One Ring. Then I think that we will probably never agree because I view it as a staple. Like I view it as a card that you should literally play in every deck.
It is a very good card, and I probably should be viewing it as a staple, and that's probably the difference here. And like, because I am in agreement that it is a very good card. So
I agree it's a staple. I just
would you play very good cards in your deck if you could, right? Like yes, right. So
Sometimes,
you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
It's also
actively
interesting-
lowering the power by not playing it, which is fine, right? Like we do that all the time, right? But that's a conscious decision that we're making, right?
It's also interesting the Rift example, because we actually did ban Rift for a season. I forget which season, but I distinctly remember we banned it only because I think it was just like luck of the draw. We happened to usually have blue at the table for most episodes, and most of the time there was a Rift that kind of like sealed a victory or whatever. And it's just the viewers. The comment section were just always fixated on Cyclonic Rift and like, boo, Cyclonic Rift, blah, 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 blah. And it happened for like one after the other. And so we were just like, all right, let's house ban Cyclonic Rift. And we house banned it for a season. We unbanned it. And I think it just showed up a lot less than what happened. And the comment section just never talked about it. I think I remember reading like one comment where like, I think I did a Cyclonic Rift, or I had a Cyclonic Rift in my hand, and people were very upset that I had it in my hand or whatever for like the Moonfolk combo deck. But yeah, for the most part, it's not been an issue. And I think that's probably my number one thing is like, if the One Ring, if our viewers are fixated on it being powerful, then I want it off the show, just because I don't want the comment section to be about one card over and over again. It's just not a good vibe.
Fulfilling that prophecy though by putting the limelight, like, it's like we are focusing on the One Ring, so it makes it so that they're going to fixate it.
We pretty much priced ourselves into banning it because of this discussion. Now everyone will be super fixated on it, and the comments will be derailed. But whatever, we'll just ignore that for a second.
We shot ourselves in the foot on that one. But I do like the idea of, I don't know how long the season's going to be. We didn't even discuss it, but if it's like 5 more episodes and we see the One Ring more, and then we could utilize, all these counters that we're talking about. Like, oh, we can run damage prevention. We can do all these things, and it's not big of a deal. And sure, I'm down for that. And then we can see how the result ends up being. But I just don't want every single game to be a One Ring game.
Okay, we've played, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 games where the One Ring has actually shown up.
Yeah.
Do you feel those games would be more or less entertaining if the One Ring did not show up in those games? Ooh. Because I felt they were like whatever, right? Like, yeah, maybe the game became with the One Ring or something, but I felt they were pretty entertaining still. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, it's not the same as like Phil popping out with Soul Ring and you just pile driving him through the dirt and then him sitting around for an hour. Like, it wasn't that vibe, right? It was just like, yes, it became about the One Ring, but stuff happened. So what do you guys think about the games we have played?
The clone deck was like an hour and a half extra afterwards. That was the only time. I think otherwise we didn't really abuse it that much, and it was fine. It's just very good. It's just like, it saved that person from losing, and then that person either won or had a very good chance of winning just because of that one card. I think it's very warping, but like, I don't think the games were bad. I think the clone one was bad though. It was like an hour and a half of looping it, and it was like, ugh.
Maybe because you were editing it.
I wasn't editing it. That was
Niantic was editing it.
I was sitting out of the game.
I mean, I think those games are like, for me, it's something that's fun to see once, but I still just am concerned that there should be 4 One Rings at the table every episode of Commander Clash. So I think that if you see those games even once a month or every couple of months, it gets old super fast. And I'm afraid that that's what's going to happen, just because it's always correct to play the One Ring.
Then it's always correct to play Haywire Might.
Sure. God, no, that's a green card.
No, that card is actually just generally like I think a very good card. I think it's a very good card.
Yeah, I'd be upset. I'd be less enthused about the card if we're like, we have like 1 week, it's going to be Anime Week, and what was the card that dictated the flow of the game? It was the One Ring, and then we go to like, I don't know, Alphabet Week, and then the person on T ends up dropping the One Ring, and then it's like all about that. Like it takes away from the theme of the show. I think if it becomes all about, it's not like Commander Clash just becomes the One Ring Clash. That would be kind of lame. But like I think we need to see a little bit more games for that to be, whether or not that's going to be the case or not.
All right, it's time to vote. Okay, here are your options: ban the One Ring immediately. Keep the One Ring until end of season. Ban next season. Keep the One Ring for this season and next season, right? And then like one season in the future, like we change the ban list again, right? So it could be anything. And then What episode are we on right now? I feel like we have like 10 more episodes in the season, roughly. Maybe 9.
I think we're hoping to take this season through like Christmas and then do the holiday break. So I think we're looking at this being a little longer season than normal. So we probably have around 10-ish episodes left, I would say.
All right.
All right. Seth.
I'm where I'm nothing y'all have said has convinced me to change my opinion about the One Ring.
Are you tweeting right now, Seth? Have you tweeted?
I will, yes, I am currently tweeting.
Seth has all the power of the people behind him. We cannot fight this.
I'm staying in the same place, which is I think it should be banned immediately, but it's not going to kill me if we run out the string of the season. But I would be heavily in favor of having it off next season if we do decide to go that route.
Krim,
I already answered. I think generally, like seriously, keep it. It's fine. It's no different than any other like bomb or staple that happens to exist in Commander. I actually also the games that we've played with it, where we've had a 3v1 somebody. I thought it was fun. I thought it was cool. I thought it was like cool to see like us as a table problem solve the situation. So I think it makes for fun content personally, but that's what I enjoy. I like seeing problem solving. I don't like seeing things just get banned because some inconveniences.
All right, so Krim and Seth have the same perspective since we started. The two neutrals, Tomer and I. Tomer, what do you think? How have the arguments swayed your opinion?
I think it's bad overall, but I would be willing to give it a longer look throughout the season. I didn't realize that the season could be like 10 more episodes. It's going to be like 5. So 10's like a larger commitment.
You were good.
I want to say like
10
keep it until the comment section devolve. Like if every single episode is like the One Ring shows up and then the comment section is like One Ring discourse. I would be like emergency house ban it, please. Can I say that? I'm okay with it as long as the comment section doesn't just turn into One Ring.
They're just going to
discourse
troll us now, though. They're just going to do it.
No, man.
So what's your final vote?
If the One Ring doesn't show up in the game, they can't. I know. Why would you even talk about the One Ring?
When you tutor and you explicitly do not choose the One Ring, they're gonna call you out, and that'll start the thread.
But I just don't run. I will run it. I will run it in some decks.
I'm gonna be in there
the comments.
All my Smurf accounts.
Yeah.
So you are in favor of keep it for the season. And
if the comment section just devolves into the One Ring discourse, I'm like ban it immediately, effective immediately. So maybe I'm more leaning towards Seth, but like,
you know what's going to happen, right? So that's effectively banned immediately, then, right?
No, not bully. It's we're making entertainment for viewers. I want the viewers to be happy, so they keep watching our stuff. That's all.
Oh, so it pains me. So I personally do not want it banned. I am personally like very similar to Krim. Like it's very amusing to deck build and to like play around it and to get someone when they One Ring and like kill them. Like would make my day. But like Tomer, like I think the audience has spoken, right? Like Seth's thread blew up because everyone wants the One Ring gone. And I think Tomer's right that the comments will always devolve into this One Ring conversation because people want it out. So I don't think we're going to go against the people, right? Like, so I think that means we have to ban. Like, I like Tomer's idea of end of season ban, but like, you just know the comments will devolve into this. And
what if it doesn't, though? I don't know.
Like even if you get someone, like shot? They One Ring and you like stomp them and you kill them, the conversation is probably still about the One Ring, even though you just pulled off a funny play, right? So I don't. I kind of want to do end of season, but I feel like we're just going to end up emergency banning it anyway, so you might as well just get to that conclusion.
Well, we kind of killed ourselves by doing this podcast. I think the podcast, like the time, as soon as we chose, Richard was like, "Hey, let's do a One Ring."
You knew this would happen. This exact sequence.
Yeah, like I think if we didn't have the discussion, we just talked down like behind closed doors. We had this exact discussion. It would have been fine to keep it for the season, but now I'm afraid. The comment section is going to.
Who would have thought that my like
podcast
half-witted No thought, 10-second tweet would have led to all this. I am not playing 4D chess here. No, this was not all part of some grand scheme. I wish I was that smart.
I even went on record and said, like, hey, by the way, Seth's wrong. It didn't get unbanned. I tweeted that out.
But then y'all banned it anyway.
So this
We
is
didn't
an
get there
effective ban, right? That's like either 2-1-1 or 3-1 effective ban. And then we'll just have
Seems
to bust
like.
it out on Salt Week, or just. By the way, we break our ban list all the time, or we used to at least.
not
It's
even
just like a
That's true.
suggestion, right? So sometimes we break our ban list, and then we take the flack for it, right? Like you just gotta know what you're getting into. But
I don't even think it's a salty card. It's just game warping. That's different.
isn't that salty? Is it like
No.
no?
Boring.
All game
Boring.
warping?
Maybe boring is the
Boring.
right word. It's just like repetitive and boring. That's how I view it. I don't know if it's salty.
Oh yeah,
to me.
Richard did run the Sol Ring one game.
That-
Tournament
Yeah,
Sol
Richard doesn't even know our
Wait,
ban
I didn't know
list,
our ban-
so
Every week I'm like, guys, what's our
He's gonna
ban
show.
list?
He's gonna show up with the One Ring anyway. Even if we banned it right now, Richard will show up the next game with the One Ring.
It will totally happen.
When?
It will totally happen. Like I think I put Smothering Tide in my deck once, and I'm like, wait. I just cut it because like it was like over budget or something, and then afterwards like, wait, it was on our ban list.
we should
All right.
we should put up a poll too. I'm curious what the community actually thinks.
All right,
Do
so
you think we
have effective ban unless the community pulls a reversal on us. If
No
by
reversal. So are we gonna
overwhelming
just
opinion,
Do we
they
just
were
wanna
like,
let
we
the
want to see
community-
the One Ring.
Yeah. Do we want to just let the community decide? Is that our ChatGPT
Yes,
um,
I think
choice?
so.
Okay.
Right?
But okay,
We're
my
fine with either
stipulation is
decision.
we
Like,
ask-
is anyone very strongly against any decision? Like, you have doomed Commander Clash forever. I quit. Like, this is not recoverable, right? And the answer is
No.
no, right? Because at the new season, we can always reverse it, right? At the new season, or we could also emergency reverse if we felt like it, right? But this is not something like.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we're a CDH channel now, and like we actually just lose all of our viewers or something, right? This is like we're fine with either option, so we're fine with letting the community decide.
As long as we ask the YouTube channel, not like a Twitter vote.
Well, hopefully the people that watch Commander Clash will answer, but I'm sure it'll just
Yeah, that's what I
random
was thinking, the
people-
YouTube
I'm sure
channel.
it'll go on Reddit, and the people will just randomly vote.
Yeah,
random
yeah,
stuff,
sure. They can
but-
give their hot takes. People who don't ever watch our show giving opinions about our
But
show.
that's fine
That'd be
because they
great.
represent the greater Commander community.
We would like them
right?
to watch our show. So
Yeah, but if they don't know, because they don't know context and stuff, they're like, "Oh, this is a dumb house ban. Why do they even ban XYZ? Why don't they ban ad nauseum?" Blah, 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 blah. It's like because we discussed it.
We will make sure non-CDH is in the poll. Okay.
Why don't you ban Thoracle first? Blah, 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 blah.
You really have it up for that Thoracle person.
It was dumb as
Yeah.
call
that
it.
poor Thoracle person.
So dumb. They should feel bad.
All right, so that is our decision.
Our
We-
decision is indecision.
Well, our decision is we're
This a
gonna
cop
ban
out.
it.
You guys figure it
And
out.
we're gonna put up a poll to see what people think, right? And if people agree with us, then it's a ban, right? If people disagree with us, then I guess we have a second.
We do another podcast.
If it's somehow
we
tied, we're
disagree.
going with our decision. They are Chat GPT tiebreaker.
right.
So we will see. We will see what happens. And again, we're WotC. We can emergency ban or unban at any time, and we have a new season to reset as well, right? But what I'm interested in is in the comments if there's any aspect of the One Ring that we failed to mention or that we're not seeing. Like maybe there is some very good reason for or against the One Ring that we haven't thought about, or anything like that. Let us know in the comments. See if you can add more to the discussion. And yeah, we'll see where this goes. We're gonna have another game of Clash without this ban list, right? Due to the way we record, right?
Yeah.
But then the
Yeah.
next 2 episodes from now will be what the viewers have chosen.
Seems
And,
good.
and that's our podcast. I'm scared, guys. We've left it all in the hands of the viewers.
Yeah, that's a lot of power to give to the viewers. So vote wisely, YouTube viewers.
I mean,
Well,
we can
YouTube,
just we
Spotify,
already did the caveat, but we
iTunes,
can
just
just
everyone
ignore
come
it
to the
straight up.
YouTube channel to vote, regardless of where you listen, right? Come to the YouTube channel to vote. And then We'll figure it out. But that is our discourse on the One Ring. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Any additional comments, and we'll see you here back next time.